regular meeting of the Cook County Grand Marais EDA to order at 4 p.m. Present are myself, Commissioners Mills, Benson, Shackleton, Hedstrom, E.B. Gudice. All right. Absent is Commissioner Anderson. So first item is approval of the agenda, and there has been an update made to the verbiage of item 5E. We've added North Shore Federal Credit Union to Resolution 2025-15. But with that revision, is there a motion to approve the March 18th, 2025 agenda?
So moved.
And seconded by?
Second.
Great, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, approval of meeting minutes of the February 18th, 2025 meeting. These minutes were provided in the meeting packet. And if there's no discussion or changes, is there a motion to approve the February 18th, 2025 minutes?
A motion to adjourn doesn't need a second.
On the February
minutes?
meetings?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you, Howard.
that's not a problem, but anyway.
Good.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, review of EDA financials. The February 2025 balance sheets and bill approval status were provided in the EDA meeting packet. The EDA also received hard copies of the balance sheet as of February the 28th, 2025 for Superior National Golf Course. And I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Shackleton to provide any insight or comments.
Sure. The EDA balance sheet shows cash on hand of $235 currently in the bank account, with another $31 in the checking account. So it's a healthy position compared to last year. Last year we had another couple $100,000, but we since have granted Gunflint View that money. So it's comparable to where we were last year. Some of the balance sheet numbers have not been updated since the state audit. So like land held for sale values and due to the city, those numbers will be adjusted soon. But everything else is in line. Any questions on the EDA financials?
How long will we hold a note to Gunflint View?
I think that was a couple years is what, they can pay us back sooner. But I think they're owed us in a couple years.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Move to accept and forward to audit.
Okay, and then as far as the Superior National Golf Course is concerned, the cash position is again healthy as compared to previous years. The sale, the pro shop beverage and food has seen a significant bump up from previous years, so it's doing as intended. It doesn't pay the bills, it's still a negative cash flow, but it's better than it has been in the past, so I think there's some traction there.
Yeah.
So, but as far as the cash position is, it's similar to last year, it's healthy, so.
Any questions or other comments regarding Superior National's financials? Is there a motion to send to audit? Or,
So moved.
thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Shackleton?
No, I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this point in the meeting, as we do, we'd like to open up the floor to public comments, if anyone wishes to approach. Just kindly state your name and address, and if you could keep your comments to 5 minutes, that would be much appreciated.
I'll make this, quick. I'm Bruce Martinson, Chair of the Schroeder Township Board. The Schroeder Township Board requested that I come just to make a comment on the request for proposals. One request is that, and page 2 of the document, says proposals will be reviewed and ranked by the EDA's Tacknight Harbor Committee. The Township Board requests one, that there also be a representative from Minnesota Power on the committee and a representative from Schroeder Township. Minnesota Power has appointed a regional development representative that works for Elite Minnesota Power, Michael Schallenbrock, if I pronounced it right, but that's a recommendation. That's all.
Great. Thank you, Bruce. Any other comments from the public? Okay. All right, seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda to our resolutions for approval. And the first one is Resolution 2025-8, approving the revised employment agreement for Garrett Ekman for services at Superior National Golf Course at Lutsen in 2025. The board might recall in January, we approved the new employment agreements for all of the full-time staff at the golf course. In February, we revisited Garrett's employment agreement. There were some discrepancies on title that have subsequently been corrected. It's in page 8 through 16 in the packet, if you wish to look at that, but we're resubmitting this for your approval. Is there a...
I'll move the approval of this resolution.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions on this? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Carries. All right, next up, Resolution 2025-12, approving amendments to the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, and its First Amendment at 4 Direction Dwellings, a 16-unit rental property in Lutsen. Again, this is an item that we've discussed in prior meetings. We discussed it most recently in February, and we agreed to go back to the HRA for their input before then coming back to this body for discussion and approval. So we did that, and the HRA was supportive of what was being suggested. We've got representation here from One Roof Community Housing, Chad Dittman. Chad, you have anything?
And Brook Tap.
Oh, thank you. If there's anything further to add, or if there's any questions from the board for One Roof, they're here. And this will be page 17 through 30 in the packet. Perhaps Heidi, between yourself and One Roof, we could just maybe refresh the board on where we've been and what we're considering.
So there were, over the last couple EDA meetings, there were a list of questions that the EDA had for One Roof Community Housing regarding this whole latest request. Most of those answers were provided in the executive director's memo that he submitted to the EDA. And then there were some clarifications made in that memo to answer some of those remaining EDA questions. So that updated memo is in your packet. And then, of course, Chad and Brooke are here to answer if there are still any outstanding questions about the request. But basically, the request is to amend some restrictions in the existing agreement between the EDA and One Roof Community Housing. I don't know if that's officially who the agreement is with. Is it with One Roof or a different, is it Quad Pod?
Yeah.
Okay, so different, but representing One Roof Community Housing. Basically having a difficult time renting at least one of the apartments in the 16-unit building in Lutsen. And so instead of having to come back to the EDA every time it's been an extended period of time of a vacancy in that apartment, that's why this request was made, so that in the future, there's more flexibility for One Roof Community Housing to go ahead and get that unit or units filled. Does that simplify things?
3 months of vacancy is my understanding, is that right? Yeah.
Is
Three
the
three
request,
continuous
yep.
months, I presume. Okay.
Pretty
Oh,
clear.
Yeah, the only question, and this is just my ignorance from the operations or maybe the history, is just the term resort versus general unit. What does that mean?
Yeah, mostly that means that resorts hold leases to some of the units,
Okay,
and then they rent them to their employees.
gotcha.
And then the general unit is not, the lease isn't held by a resort, and so.
Thank you.
Is that still in place? I know they guaranteed, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know
Yeah, half of the units are still leased by
control.
resorts.
they- Right. I know that was a big thing when we built those, that they, it's basically 100% occupancy when they started out because the resorts pledging that, I didn't realize they were still going, so, good.
Works well for them and
Yep.
yeah, keeps people in there.
Great. Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, just as a comment, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'm sorry for the vacancy, and yeah, it is a difficult kind of balance to, tight line to walk there, so, and appreciate your patience with us, getting a grip on that too.
It's very reasonable.
Okay. Well, with that, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2025-12?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-12.
Thank you.
Second?
All right. All those in favor, oh, I'm sorry, any other discussion or, nope. Okay.
Nope.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's a long drive, and yeah, hopefully you can make it worth the while.
For sure.
Okay, taking us to Resolution 2025-13, approving the Taconite Harbor Strategic Plan Request for Proposal Document. The Taconite Harbor Committee, as I understand it, met on March the 6th and prepared this, I think, terrific package. Dave Mills, do you wish to add any
Yeah,
background?
yeah, there's, well, just first off, I want to recognize a discrepancy that our subcommittee was recognizing here with the timing of things. There was just some discussion around, well, before our timeline overall. And then we also discussed in our subcommittee just about how long should this RFP, be out there? And then how long should we give ourselves to review it? And so, the one concern is just the April 4th timing, and the committee talked about 30 days from when we get it out there. I have a memory of discussing just concerns of things being out there too long, and that firms are usually kind of ready to jump on this type of opportunity, but that may not be the case, and I don't have enough perspective to know if, is 30 days too long, is 2 weeks too short, or any of that, so, but the committee overall was feeling that the 30 days is the way to go. So I don't know if the board wanted to give input there, or Tracy, if you wanted, or Mayor Benson, if you wanted to give any further context with the time.
Well, part of it was, even in having the conversation, we hadn't yet gotten to our final decision, like, should this come back in front of the board?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how soon does this come back? Well, if we were waiting till a board meeting, which we should, and we did, then that would push it even longer.
Right.
So then we said, we don't know what that date should be, so let's set a time, if it's at 30 days, 21 days, whatever, and then you could adjust the final date based on when you were able to get it out the door, as opposed to a fixed date that way. And, the whole point of this is to maybe broaden the reach of who we want to see this, or a different, so anyways, that's how it was, and that rather than sit here and make corrections through your whole document, it was like, can you just readjust when we know what the right date
Sure,
should be?
sure.
And then set it out. And yeah, I don't know, I couldn't even remember, it was 30, whatever the time span is, it would just reset the date.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was that, and then to address Supervisor Martins, or Chair Martinson's concern about inclusion of Minnesota Power and Schroeder Township, and we talked about that a little bit, and my memory was the conversation went around with if the EDA is wholly responsible for this grant, then the EDA should be making those decisions, but we don't want to exclude key partners in the process, and it's just, when is it going to be the best time for that inclusion, sooner rather than later, or if the accountability falls on the EDA, then is it just the EDA call? And so that's another.
Well, the EDA certainly has authority and ability to expand committees, and that would be my recommendation, is expand the committee by two, having a representative of Minnesota Power and Schroeder Township, and I think that ought to be in the document, because that's, I mean, they're our partners. I mean, that's, I mean, not that we wouldn't include them, but I mean, I think it's really good to have that written in the document myself.
And this is kind of the beginning, and so to
Yeah.
have partners on board from the
Yeah.
beginning, it makes sense, and I could
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
I mean, our discussion went
Yeah,
kind of all ways, and so.
sure. Well, I
Do
would
you-
propose that amendment to this,
But I may have misheard Bruce right now. I thought his request was just in relation to the RFP. Could they be part of the decision-making process for that piece, not totally on our small subcommittee? Because there will be a larger committee. If they're
Yeah.
number one on the list, it's their property. We don't even know where we can go with this.
right?
So that's a given, and of course, Schroeder Town Hall as well. But I guess I just misunderstood the ask. I thought it was just in making the decision for the RFP, could they be at the table? And that makes total sense to me, to have, especially Minnesota Power, at the table for that. But the larger group, this subcommittee is just a little subcommittee, and then after that, it springs to life, and so I think the request there is, to some extent, irrelevant, because of course they're going to be at the table.
The very nature of the whole project
Project.
is community
Oh.
involvement, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
So, that would be my desire then, too.
So having the,
That
having
those-
our partners at the table for the RFP
Yeah.
evaluation.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
not-
it won't be a hindrance. I mean,
Not the
it maybe
RFP
makes
being
it,
sent out,
I'm sorry?
not the RFP being sent out, right? That's going to happen.
That's
Yeah.
happening.
It's
Right.
just
Just
an
when we do the-
evaluation of the
When
proposal.
it
Yeah.
goes back in,
Alright.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, more eyes are better than fewer,
Right.
in my
Okay.
mind.
yeah,
Okay.
and, but after that, this is, this subcommittee was just a getting us started,
Sure,
getting the ball
then there'll be
rolling thing.
a bigger committee anticipated, yeah.
Yeah,
Got
that's
it.
why we're doing this, is to
Got
get
it.
out and
Perfect.
identify all our stakeholders, all our issues, whatever, and then
Yeah.
it'll spring from
And-
there.
Perfect, yeah.
There may be instances down the road where our subcommittee does need to huddle up again or whatever, too, so, and, I mean, I easily could imagine our partners
Yeah.
being a part of that, too.
Sure, sure.
Especially the Schroeder Township and Minnesota Power, just because they're such key stakeholders there, so.
Regarding timing, I'm not sure I've got a firm position between 2 weeks and 4 weeks. That feels to me like the right range, and this would be at the at one end of that range, so I don't have any issue there. Of course, we're past March the 7th, so we'll have to Tracy's point, to kind of reset that. Do we have a list of recipients of this RFP?
I don't, or I guess the committee
How do
doesn't.
we know who to send this to?
There's not an official list of recipients yet, but I already have many firms who have heard rumblings that this is coming out that have already reached out and saying, please send it to us. So there'll be as far as I know, there'll be an extensive list, but it will be, I plan to compile this official list and then send it to the committee, and then just see if there's any that are missing or whatever, and then just
Okay.
send it to those people.
I would, I would even, well, it's just me talking, I would even just send it out. I mean, I don't know that the committee is going to have much perspective on
Just staff function.
contractor consultants or any of that, but I just assumed your professional network would be the best avenue in one shape or form, but
Another idea would be to simply post the RFP on the website and then direct people there, or promote, this is there,
I think that's
you know.
the right thing in the digital age. Yeah. So, so this RFP timeline would just reset with kind of the same amount of time in between, but just reset from the date that we post this then.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah,
what I'm
that's what
hearing?
we meant, so we.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the subcommittee is comfortable with what appears to be 1 week to do the scoring and selection.
Yeah.
Oh, just, yeah.
So you got 20 days of it being out there for people to respond, and then you got, giving yourselves about a week to sort through?
Is that
Uh,
where we're at right
Or you
now?
want 2 weeks?
Well, the only thing with caution on that is just, if we've got a broader group we have to get to the table, can we
Yeah.
get them within a week?
Yeah.
Knowing people's calendar, especially when we're looking at outside groups,
So we're-
but short of that, I mean, as long as you have a little
So-
flexibility that we realize if we held back,
18,
it
so
would be
say
scheduling.
the 20th plus another 10 days, so you're looking at April 10th for due date, and then maybe,
Well, okay, the soonest this might go out is what?
Friday.
Friday.
Okay, so let's just say 3 weeks for someone to respond, so whatever date that lies at.
Great.
And then
10
we look
days.
and see what we've got, and let's give us a week, and if we run over because we just can't schedule
Yeah.
it, but we're good, how's that sound?
Right.
yeah.
And I could add some verbiage in here, to the EDA's discretion to update timelines or something,
Yeah.
so that covers the EDA's,
Yeah.
You
It might
know.
take 10 days to get everybody together.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
that
just keep in contact with,
Yeah.
because there could be a thing where an excellent proposal comes and requests, well, I need another day. And so that would give flexibility but yet fair to the others who submitted on time, just saying, this is our goal, or the EDA's goal is to choose the most highly ranked proposal or something.
Just put in a little line, we do what we want.
Right.
Dash David Mills.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll-
See
we'll-
David,
yes,
see
we'll-
Commissioner.
We'll attribute that to you.
Well, is there like a site that you would expect people who are, consultants or, that we would expect for them to be looking? Or agencies that we?
We'd notify, she'd notify, kind of, I think there's ways to broadly
Yeah.
communicate that this RFP's out there, go look here.
I've seen RFPs posted on the Economic Development Association of Minnesota site. So those sorts of professional organizations will, communities will post their RFPs. So there's a variety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I kind of thought it'd be something like that. Okay.
Okay. My additional request as it relates to this activity is that the respondents to the RFP include a robust timeline. Not to say that the shortest one is the best one, but that they have a clear understanding of how they intend to actually plan their work. And so it's not, if I could say, based on when the money runs out, but rather, a robust timeline that they can hold to.
So we don't speak to when their work gets done here then.
I don't think we've given them a deadline for when the final
'Cause
work is to be completed,
Right.
but I would like to see that as part of their.
Yeah, I would too.
part of their
I mean,
plan.
Teresa's original timeline, although awfully tight, was at least a format to, we have some expectation of having this work done in some organized manner and not too long.
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
speaking.
they should propose a timeline, I guess.
That's my point,
Yeah.
yes. I don't know enough to propose my own. Learned that lesson in the last meeting. But I think that they, as the experts in that space, should map out their work
Yeah.
and have that, yeah.
Well, and I would say then the real thing is your timeline will be set by, have you managed to identify all the issues? Have you brought forward all the stakeholders? Have we, some of that will answer itself. I think it'll weigh itself, but that isn't, I think we'd be shortchanging ourselves if we put too much, I know what you mean, you don't want it to
There's
just
a lot
roll
of balls to
forever.
juggle.
Let's make them.
We gotta find a
So it's gonna be hard
balance to that, because that to me is the main thing of what we're trying to achieve at this point. We don't own anything, we can't do anything. We've got to figure out what's going on, we got to get updates from these organizations. Our info is a couple of years old.
Is it already?
2023, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we need to learn about, so, but I get your point, we don't want this
Even if it was
just
a Gantt chart
rambling.
that was no more detail than quarters, I would feel
Yeah.
more
Well, if
comfortable.
we have them propose a timeline,
Yeah,
and then once we hire somebody or get down to that, then we can negotiate that and say, 6 years? No, we're not gonna give you 6 years, but, sort of thing, right?
I can't imagine anyone tackling a project saying that ahead of time if they're doing proper project management, because
Yeah.
they know better.
How long, you mean?
Yeah.
Right, because they just know, it's one thing if you have to build to a set deadline, like a building that has to be completed by a certain date, but then you're the one also influencing if that's realistic or not. So, but I get it, we can't just go on forever.
Yeah.
I don't know how to identify a timeline or determine the timeline. I don't have that type of experience, and I can see the value of it, right?
they should.
They should, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we just had something and you're asking for a timeline,
Yeah.
That could-
That's their job,
yeah.
not our job.
Okay.
So where would that go exactly here?
Um,
Project scope?
Oh, well, I thought it could be in the narrative. Request for proposed format, including a narrative, include a summary of the team's approach. It seems to me that the high-level timeline would be part of their approach,
Okay,
possibly, but, yeah. Okay.
that's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really good work on the
Yeah.
RFP, so nicely done.
May I suggest some verbiage be added to the resolution text based on this discussion is with changes as discussed at this EDA meeting or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
And then I'll make those changes. I'm still waiting on a picture, a really good picture from Minnesota Power to include. So little things like that would be,
Yeah.
So I would move this resolution, including including the items as discussed at the board meeting.
I'll second.
Great, all those in
Oh,
favor?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, further discussion?
Just so we have clarity here, yeah. The things we discussed for changing is the dates within the
Yep.
proposal,
Mhm.
the addition of the timeline, and then small details like
And,
the,
Yeah.
and the, thank you, yes, and then the addition of
Yeah.
the selection, okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Any other discussion points before we move to a vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Second, all those opposed, rather? All right, motion carries. All right, taking us to Resolution 2025-14, approving Business Development Fund Grant Agreement with Britt Malik LLC for a total amount not to exceed $1,000. And Heidi, I think you've got some further background on this.
well, this is, the EDA's Grant Review Committee reviewed this application and came back with additional questions, and after receiving the answers from the applicant, approved this application over the course of a couple meetings and some email correspondence. So the grant committee agreed to forward it on to you all today here at the regular EDA meeting for considering this resolution. Typically, the EDA would see a grant agreement at this meeting when approving a new business development grant or fund grant. But the committee the Grant Review Committee is currently working on updating guidelines and trying to come up with a uniform grant agreement for moving forward, et cetera. So I thought that to keep things moving along, if the EDA is open to approving this grant, and that I would work with the Grant Review Committee to finalize the grant agreement document and then get that signed at a later date.
Seems reasonable.
I should say what this grant is for. This application is for purchasing a printer and ink and paper for a small business. I believe in the summary of the business, I'm blinking at the moment.
Look like custom design.
Yeah, it's art stuff.
Art,
It's art, yeah.
Okay.
The much more thorough description of what she's doing than a lot of things we give money to, so I'm impressed by what she's done here.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-14.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.
We've done a lot of work in all this grant stuff.
Just on the topic of the grant
31.
committee, I understand that the committee might be looking for an alternate, so I've volunteered myself if someone is recused and I need to step in, happy to do that. So.
All right.
Okay, then taking us to Resolution 2025-15, approving the removal of Steve Serba and Teresa Bada, and the addition of Peter Clissold and Heidi Krampitz as financial signatories on Cook County Grand Marais EDA and Superior National Golf Course at Lutzen accounts at Grand Marais State Bank, that's a mouthful, and North Shore Federal Credit Union. I think that's self-explanatory.
So moved.
Is there a
Support.
second? Okay.
Yep.
Any discussion? Last chance. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, seeing none, motion carries. SBDC report. Pete, first time giving a report. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Peter Mott with the Small Business Development Center. And I'm here to just report on our February activities. It was a very robust month. We saw 33 clients, and we met with several of them multiple times throughout the month. So what that means is they're meeting certain expectations of the first meeting, and we're able to move on to phase 2 and phase 3. So as many of you know, I've been working with Pat Caponero in the transition. She'll be retiring at the end of the month. And so we work together on these client meetings, and I've been learning a lot. I can tell you that without going into any detail, these clients typically fall into 3 buckets. The first bucket is the startup bucket. It's the people just trying to get their business going. We see about 50% of our clients fall into this category. The second category is kind of business management. These are folks that might need a little help with their spreadsheets or their Quicken books, or they need help with their website. And so we have expertise within the Small Business Development Center network to connect those people with those experts and to advance them to whatever they're trying to accomplish. So we saw several existing businesses come to us in February to kind of sharpen some of their business practices, and we're happy to help with that. And the third bucket is the business expansion bucket. And so that's a bucket that typically involves existing community businesses that are looking to expand. And so we were fortunate in February to work with each one of those groups, and we hope to see several new businesses operating this summer in Cook County. And just a couple of words on the transition. Things seem to be going really fast. We're already halfway through the month, and I feel like there's still a lot to learn, but Pat and I are working very closely. She's not only showing me like how to do the business, but she's also connecting me with the network of people that she knows to get that business done. And I'm learning that she has a very big toolbox. And so I'm trying to learn all the tools that she has. And it's very impressive, and I'm very excited, and hopefully she hasn't gotten sick of me yet, because I still need the couple of weeks we have together. That's what I have.
Great.
So, how do clients find you?
They come to us for a few different ways. I'll give you some examples just from the last couple of weeks. We get referrals from people in the business community who have worked with us,
Okay.
who say, hey, you should try them. Or, like the other day, we knew of some industry folks who were meeting. They had kind of an industry meeting, and so we kind of invited ourselves to attend and share information about the services we provide. And surprisingly, perhaps, people just call up, the Chamber of Commerce or the Visitors Bureau and just say, how do I be a part of your business community?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's awesome. And of course, anyone that comes to you who has that interest, we would encourage you to send them right to us, and we'll take care of them.
I receive several calls a month as well, and refer them on to the SBDC. Yep.
Does the SBDC have a presence on our EDA website? Great. There's another way. Okay.
Could I make a comment?
Please.
I would just say that a lot of paths lead to the Small Business Development Center. When you're looking at sources of funding, especially for the startup phase of a business, a lot of them will point towards a small business center like this to help access that. So whether it's from a bigger institute or federal funding, state funding program, a lot of them will divert you to your local business development center as the first kind of stop in that journey. And that's just based on my experience from 2022, starting our company from a few thousand miles away. Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Pete?
Powerful, thank you.
Pete, thank you so much. It's
Thank
great to
you.
have you.
Thank you.
Okay, a few discussion items. The first is the conflict of interest policy and disclosure questionnaire. I've come to learn that this is an annual process, and it's upon us. Heidi included it in the packet. So we've got a couple of options. You can print it off and sign it and scan, fax it, drop it off at Heidi's office, or you can stop down sometime this week and sign it in person. Up to you.
I can pick them up as well. I'm here this week, so let me know. I just wanted to add a couple things too. So there's two separate conflict of interest related documents. The first is the actual policy, and that requires just your signature as an EDA commissioner. And then the actual questionnaire gets into more of, as commissioners, any sort of involvement in the community that would be perceived or actual conflicts of interest. The form asks that you fill, that describe those items. Also, requires a signature on the form. And these forms are actually required through the annual audit process, so that the auditor will ask for these forms every year. So that's why you see them every year.
Is this a document that was created for this EDA, or is it one that, I don't know, like a template, so to speak?
I'm not sure.
I'm assuming it's a template.
It's
But
been
don't know.
template, but then modified.
Modified.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I see missing from it is acknowledging the receipt of confidential or sensitive financial information for grant applications specifically. There is in the guidelines, for instance, we can ask for a profit and loss statement, balance sheet, sensitive information that I think should be explicitly protected, at least acknowledging in this document somewhere that as board members who process this when we're assessing grant applications, that we will keep that confidential and not disclose that outside of the workings of this board.
Sure. Good idea.
So would that be just in addition to the policy?
Yeah, I'm not sure, where does that lie in conflict of interest? It's certainly an issue that needs to be addressed, but I'm not sure, as a conflict of interest matter, how does that relate to a?
To this document?
Yeah,
sure.
to the.
I
yeah.
struggled.
Yeah.
To find a place where I
Right.
could say, I think it might fit best
Right.
here.
Yeah.
It's a similar topic, but yeah, I agree, it's not necessarily a.
Or a standalone document would be.
I think a standalone document would be more appropriate.
Sure.
You know, it's just something, a single page that we acknowledge that we do have access to this confidential information, and we recognize it as confidential information, and that we should protect it. You know, it hasn't been brought up before until Alex brought it up
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, grant review committee meeting, so I think it's
Well,
worthwhile.
and that makes me think of, so P&Ls and that sort of financial information should not go in the EDA packets because that is,
Public information.
so that would make it public. So some sort of verbiage in that new policy, financial policy, should be added to clearly state that too. So I'll have to look for a template
Yeah.
for that.
Confidentiality
Right,
policy or something.
exactly.
Well,
So is it okay if I bring that to the board next month then, a separate
Yeah, something for
standalone?
us to review and sign and acknowledge, yeah.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Is there some other larger document we already have that talks about our roles and, how it should be, that we can put that into, like, within that binder that you,
Bylaws
is there
or
something there that always talks about those kinds of
I
things?
don't think there's any mention in the bylaws.
I didn't see it either, but
Oh,
maybe.
I just meant that we could fit it.
Oh,
into
sure, yeah.
a
Word it in there?
document. Yeah, that we could add the wording into. Not that it was literally there.
An existing one? Okay.
I
Check
love
that out.
amending bylaws because then we have public hearings.
Good suggestion.
Right.
The next item is WTIP North Shore Community Radio Annual Underwriting Contract. Heidi.
I was approached by WTIP, actually, when I first arrived in this role about 4 months ago, and then approached again last month regarding the same topic. The EDA decided last year to not extend this annual contract with WTIP as the EDA was preparing and approving its budget. So this particular item I'm going to talk about was purposely left out of the EDA's budget for this year. So I just want to provide that as a history. But a recap of what this is in the past, the EDA has had an annual contract with WTIP. The last one in 2024 was an annual cost of $2,080. And what that provided the EDA with was 2 messages a week on the radio, basically stating the mission of the EDA. So I can read to you what it was said. This is what it was said in the past on the radio. The Cook County Grand Marais Economic Development Authority, whose mission is to diversify the economy, create employment through retention and expansion of existing businesses, and development of new businesses, support the development of housing, and increase the tax base. And then refers to the EDA website, referring people to the EDA website. Well, I inquired with WTIP, could we, per the suggestion of former EDA President Steve Serba, could we make this message, this 2 messages per week, dynamic? Could we change it up and advertise whatever we're working on, or if we're looking for input, or just change these messages often? And WTIP said, sure, of course. You just give us, provide us with that updated info. So if that's something that the EDA wants to start up again this year, I believe there could be funds transferred from another fund in the EDA budget if the EDA wants to do that, to start up right away. And then at that time, we would be provided with a contract to look at. I asked for a sample contract for this meeting, which the WITIP said they don't do that. They'll give, once we tell them, we're interested, then they'll provide a sample or the contract for approval. So that's where we are with that. Just trying to respond to WITIP's request, wanting input from the EDA.
Well, I'm active in the station. I can't say I've got a financial conflict, but I certainly have an emotional conflict. But being able to adjust these underwriting messages, rather than that, which sounds a little boilerplate to me, we'd be able to go out and inform the public of the availability of grants, inform the public of the availability of the SBDC resource. At some point in the future, maybe we've got a TAC Harbor survey on our website that we want to inform the public about. So I think this underwriting message, it's not advertising, can be used to suit our purposes. Now, I don't know what room exists in the budget to do this because it wasn't captured, but that's my thinking.
Well, the radio's always been super flexible about that. I could change your message anytime I want. I mean, it's never a problem being
sure.
charged. So
Yep.
that angle, I think, is how they've always operated. And if we see value add outside of that, yeah. I think the main thing is remembering to update.
To manage it, sure.
Or they'll just keep reading it.
Yeah.
I remember talking about this. I don't remember why we decided to not include it.
It was, the issue was it really economic activity, budget-related expenses? Is it really what we wanted to spend money on? And that was the issue. I think the former director had questions about the WTA sponsorship, and she also had questions about the chamber, $6,000
Oh, yeah.
dues member. So is that the best way to spend $2,000, $6,000, $8,000? And so I think that's the question, and I think we as a board have to chew on that and decide for ourselves, is that the best way we want to spend
Sure.
$2,000, $6,000, $8,000 a year?
Yeah.
I could be swayed either way, but I think it's appropriate to ask the question.
For sure.
So,
Look,
but yes,
if
I mean, the funds are there. I mean, we have,
Okay.
we carried into the year $200,000, so I mean, we're gonna receive another, $495 this year, and 200 of that will be another
Okay.
grant fund. So, from previous years, we have the funding to,
Sure.
do a WTIP or a chamber sponsored dues membership as
Yeah.
well, so.
If we don't manage the underwriting message to align with what we're trying to get across to the public at any given point in time,
Right.
then it might just be $2,000 we're letting on fire. But if we leverage it to the right message at the right time, that's a different story.
I think,
Just as it relates to the grant review committee, one of the things we discussed the last couple of times we chatted was how to increase applications and drive competition. And this would be a really great way to do that. I don't think a lot of people are aware of this particular fund. And I could see, as the only radio station in town, a lot of people listen to it, and it might be a good way to increase applications and give us some sort of metric to see if it was worth it or not over the course of a year.
Yeah, you're right. That one we could really measure, because then you can say, how did you find out about this?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got quite a few big things coming up. New SBDC person, new HRA person, the sales for national, your points about the grant program are right on. So I think it's probably good to keep our oar in the water, plus, our support of local radios, a part of it as well. So that would be good. And then we will add on to that with the free media we get with the interviews after our meetings, which, have been on and off, but, one of the past administrations was very good at doing that every month after our meeting.
Heidi ran out on the radio not 2 weeks ago.
All right, good. Good
Oh,
job.
yeah, and anytime we have something special we want to talk about, they're always more than happy
Oh, yeah.
to
Oh, yeah.
have an interview at
Yeah.
that point too. So, yeah, I mean, not that we shouldn't do this, but they're very receptive
They
a
sure
lot of
are.
Yeah,
times to
I mean,
those.
it is news, and, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's always helpful to have some skin in the game there too. Are we discussing this, or deciding to go the next step?
Well, who's in favor of doing the sponsorship or the underwriting?
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
I think we all are.
I mean, no
Or
one's-
then to move forward, I would like to see that script really hammer home at what Alex is suggesting, is that grants, because we have this money out available, please consider it. Talk about the SBDC and really try to bring in those applicants and people, that activity, that'd be awesome, so.
So every month, the latest script could be provided with an EDA report or report to the
Yeah, that way
EDA.
we'd be on top of it, right? And we wouldn't
Yep.
forget about it and then we can.
And it,
Or whatever, if there's something else that pops up, just remember that we have that option
Right.
to utilize it,
Yeah.
to message.
Yeah.
Because you do get busy and you forget
well,
that's
the
there.
two things we talked about one of them, we will talk about the other one, or third one, is the rollout of this Tack Harbor,
Right. That's coming soon. so
yeah, and then also the sale of the golf course, because that'll be kind of an
That'll be
ongoing
up,
thing.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's better than just the mission statement.
right,
Totally.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Specific, well, in between, you can do that, but, having specific work that we're doing right now, I think is a good thing.
okay,
And if we're not telling our story, someone will tell it for us.
exactly.
Control your own narrative.
Well, if you haven't heard a rumor by 10 o'clock in the morning, you need to start one. I mean, that's kind of the rule, right?
Gee, Howard, come on.
Noted.
Okay. Speaking of Howard, assisted living project.
Yeah, this has been ever since I joined the EDA, it's been a hope and dream of mine is to try to incent assisted living into Grand Marais. We've worked on it a lot. Something comes up and gets in the way of that. It has several times. The latest proposal we had was in 2019, and we got really close. But then the developers kind of looked at, well, where are we going to staff, how are we going to staff this? Where are they going to be? Well, there's no housing. Well, it just occurred to me in the last couple of months that, wow, we got a lot of new apartments coming in. There's other housing projects. I think, that barrier is going to kind of go away, and maybe this is a good time to look at assisted living. I did, through another connection, had a conversation with a person in that business. Kind of talked for a while, and a week or so ago, he calls me up. He said, well, I'm on my way up there. You want to have a cup of coffee? So he came up, we chatted. I'd given him some materials that we had been developed back in 2019. I haven't circled back around with him, but I did tell him that the EDA would be a, part and parcel of the project. The last go-around, we had a piece of land that we were gonna, offer for $1. We're always there to go to bat for infrastructure with IRRB or other grants. We may have some of our own money. The last project, we were teeing up to be the lead on TIF financing, for instance. And then, it's always good for a developer to have boots on the ground, somebody local to kind of help, get through the local planning, zoning, politics and all that. But we can't just go pick a developer, we have to, here it goes back to an RFP. So I think we should consider looking at and sending out an RFP for the assisted living project.
I think that's spot on. We were so close, and then the
Yeah.
housing barrier
Yeah.
it just killed it. So, and yeah, there is enough, I think, momentum and projects happening
Yeah.
where that, I mean, I guess I don't know how the finances of the caregivers versus the cost of the apartments will go, but there's options,
Yeah.
you know, and so I think that's an excellent idea, and, I mean, when did the RFP go out last time? Was that
Yeah.
2019, or
Well, it
like
must have been 18 or 19,
18? Yeah, so, don't have to reinvent it, we can just
No.
revisit it and
Yeah,
update and see
And
where
I think
things are
that
at.
group, well, that group may still be around, but I
Yeah.
mean, they maybe have aged out. I mean, there was a couple guys that were investors in that, and they were
Oh.
interested, but I think one of them was 70 at the time, and then,
Oh.
now he's older, so.
I just had a question about, I'm new to the community, right? And some of you a little older than I am. Howard, you've been around for a while. I'm curious about the need. I'm not saying that I don't like the idea, but just the need. I mean, right now we know we have workforce housing issues, right? Is there a notable, I know there really is an assistant resources living here, but is there a need for it? Are people
Yeah,
talking about it? Is there
Well,
like-
the last, and I don't know who funded it, but it maybe been the developers, but there's an outfit called Whiffley in Duluth. They do a lot of different things. I don't know if they're an accountant or who they are, but they do a lot of different things, and one of the things that they do is analysis of the demographics and all that around the need for assisted living. So that, that's probably in our files. They had done that back in 17, 18. So, and I'm sure that would have to be refreshed.
There was a housing study done in,
No, but this is separate from the housing study, yeah.
I
This
think
is-
the housing study still addressed some of those
Yeah.
issues. And
Is
it's,
that part of that whole GO Team project that's
Well, the
even
GO team
older
was,
than-
the assisted living was separate from the GO team.
Oh, okay.
But Whiffley did a specific study on the need for
Yeah.
assisted
and
living.
even in the strategic planning document we did last summer, there was mention of
Assisted living,
assisted living needs, the aging population and nowhere to go.
yeah. If I was there, I'd probably brought it up.
Yeah. So-
Yeah, I think it's important just to kind of identify the spectrum of needs, right? There's, older people in their homes, then at a certain point, a decision can be made that it's a bit much space for them to upkeep or whatever, and so then there can be senior housing or senior apartments, and then there can be assisted living after that, and then there's the care center, which is, there's a waiting list for that too. So I think part of the strategy was to build assisted living facilities that maybe has both senior housing as well as assisted living, which could free up homes in the community and just kind of be part of all of that dynamic. And so when we talk about workforce housing, which we really emphasize, I often also hear we really need senior housing because, 30% of our population is over the age of 65.
And assisted living is not a skilled nursing facility. I mean, that's what the care center is, and it's a different level. Assisted living have to have one registered nurse, on employee, but the rest of the staff can be lower level caregivers, you might say, the workforce, basically. Yeah.
And then there's just opportunity as well in those buildings for, say, a childcare center,
Good. Yeah.
There's just a lot of different dynamics that might,
Yeah.
that might work with that. So I'm glad that came to mind. I hadn't thought of that for
Yeah.
a couple of years here.
Didn't we own land last time?
Yeah, and I did have a we gave it away to the HRA. However, at the last meeting, the HRA did talk about, there was the land that the business park across, just east of the law enforcement center on 12th. And they, unbeknownst to me, they kind of took action to reserve that property for assisted living. So I think sounds like the whole community is kind of on board with,
So there would be-
okay,
okay.
let's refresh this.
Well, I would like to see the RFP. So, yeah.
Could I make a suggestion? That we work with the HRA on this, so the EDA is not only drafting the RFP, but we have help
Smart.
with the HRA director.
Thank you for going through.
That's
the
very
this
smart.
topic that
Yeah.
was, we have an HRA now.
Yeah, totally.
I'm having lunch with them tomorrow.
With Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Well, let's get this on the EDA level. You get your whatever, you're the key person here.
And maybe by next meeting, we could have an actual, something to, okay.
Well, and to what extent should the EDA be driving it, right? Should it just, I mean, I really appreciate you bringing it up, but it does sound like an HRA
Yeah, but it's
thing.
economic development too. I mean, it's jobs. I mean, it's, I don't know how many staff you put in one of those things. You gotta be 20, you know, so.
It sounds to me like this is up their alley more than our alley, but, you know, they have limited access to resources.
Yeah.
We have the resources
Yeah.
more than the HRE does, so I could see it, the partnership should be there, right?
But they definitely need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't want it to take over Heidi's work, right? Like, hoping for focus on golf
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
Tack Harbor, you know, so there's some big
Oh,
ones.
she can walk and
We
chew
got some
gum.
things going on. We got some balls in the
For our basic business
The basket.
development.
Yeah, yeah, right,
We're
right.
clearing our plate, hopefully, of some larger issues, and maybe we can get a focus
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Howard.
Want me to give the golf course committee report?
Yeah.
In a moment.
I think there's
Oh,
more.
all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So item number 8, committee and commissioner reports. Actually, I think we'll start with Commissioner E.B. Buttigieg. You wanted to discuss the grant committee, is that right?
Oh, sure. I guess like just a general overview as far as like the guideline kind of assessment and updates. For now, we're not overhauling, but we're just updating, right? Was just one quick point. After about a year of implementation, I think there have been some changes that have been, or needs that have been identified, right? And I think just to keep it real simple, you know, recognizing that it's an incredible resource for one. As was mentioned earlier, just establishing consistency in the grant agreement. So everybody that's being awarded money to purchase equipment has a consistent, a similar agreement, just as someone improving real estate would have a similar agreement, right? As far as terms, responsibilities, there's probably a little wiggle room depending on individual circumstances, but looking back in time over the past year, there's not an agreement that looks the same, even for similar expenses or projects. So tightening that up a little bit, consistency. We've talked a lot about identifying need. How do you take an application from someone and identify the need, right, for grant funds? Is that, or how much of a role does that play in whether or not they are approved or recommended for consideration? So we talked about that. And I think at the end of the day, the three of us have, I think, aligned on a lot of these, and figuring out how to incorporate it into the existing document is just the time-consuming kind of part of this, right, the challenge. Does that seem accurate, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to take a few more weeks, but Siri's on vacation too, so right now it's kind of, we're in a pause moment, but I think in a few more weeks, we should have something that is near finished, you know, so.
And then one more just point is, just as far as like committee work, subcommittee work, whatever you want to call it, I think one of the things that keeps popping in my head is just the organization of how these subcommittees work. And I think the grant review committee especially, because it receives applications on a rolling basis, we'll get an email saying, hey, we got an application, and then a couple days later, we'll get another one, right? Is that it probably might help everybody's role in the committee and the directors if there was perhaps a committee chairperson. I think it's pretty common in other board type or committee situations with a subcommittee identified or created to handle a particular task, because there's just a member on that board that can organize the correspondence, can organize the process. So when an application is received, the committee can activate, follow a couple steps to get this thing taken care of without taking up the resources of scheduling, correspondence, things like that from the director. So that was just one more kind of thought. It might not be applicable to every committee, but I think especially because the grant review committee is always working on something, it might be helpful to have a little bit of just like, I don't know, a lower level of leadership just in that topic.
I know when I worked on that committee, we tended to reach a consensus, I think, every time, and then take something forward. And perhaps that won't always be the case. Perhaps a vote might be necessary from time to time within the committee. But do you think that amongst yourselves, you can land on that head, that leader within the committee?
Yeah, it might, maybe the leader's a wrong word, maybe it's just an organizational role, honestly. It's just
Okay.
making sure people are responding to correspondence and
Yeah,
collecting everybody's ideas.
Okay.
You know, oftentimes the applicant might be contacted again for clarification
Sure.
or to, and, you know, correct something on their application or something that's missing. And I think it, sometimes, you know, if Heidi's getting hit from all directions, like, I got a question, I need this, I need that. Just to streamline the process, because right now it's emails and meetings and, you know, kind of reactionary almost. That's all, it's more of just an organizational, I think.
But isn't that the director's role?
I think that was the thing, that was a question too, is do I attend every subcommittee meeting? There's 6 subcommittees, some meet all the time, some don't. Should I be scheduling those meetings for the committee? Like, just what should I be doing, which shouldn't I be doing type thing? An example just recently is that I was unable to attend, you know, half of a meeting, of one of their latest meetings. I couldn't be at the last half, and so someone took over doing minutes or notes, you know, stuff like that, and how all that organizational stuff works, or how it should work, I guess, is the
Yeah.
question.
When I started on the board, and so when I started in the grant committee, Teresa did have a role, but that seemed to me, Mark, to maybe drift off into the distance a little bit, and the committee was doing its
She
own
would,
work.
I mean, she'd coordinate the scheduling, you know, so she'd, you know, make sure we're all meeting. When can we meet? Is it Friday at 1? Is it Tuesday at 3? Whatever it is, she'd make that happen. She was the point person that organized that. And then the grant committee got together and they met up. Teresa wasn't usually involved in those meetings. It
Sure.
wasn't something that she did.
I can
So-
certainly tell you, as it relates to the golf committee, we are self-managed, and
Yeah.
we don't need any sort of administrative help, but the dynamic is certainly different from the grant committee, because there's a lot happening over there.
Well, I think for me, it feels like, you know, an application comes in, I think we owe it to them to get back to them as quickly
Yes.
as possible, right? And to evaluate their application. Sometimes, you know, because of scheduling conflicts, I'm busy, Alex is busy, Siri's in Florida right now. So, I mean, so there's an issue, can we all get on top of this? How quickly can we do it? If we do it, let's say it takes 5 days before us to like come together. And then, well, there's maybe that we have some questions now. And so then there's another, you gotta contact the applicant and get back, and now we have to get together again. So sometimes, you know, what you hope to be done in, you know, in one meeting takes, you know, now you're into the next month before you can really address something. So, could that be done more efficiently? I'd like to see it happen more efficiently, but I don't know what needs to happen to make that happen, so.
What I was thinking you were gonna say was, you know, you get an application in, and then 2 days later you get another application in, so you're kind of meeting twice. I just thought you were gonna say, should we just have a regularly scheduled, like, okay, there's applications coming in until this, and now we do a batch, and then you do that again, but to your point,
Right, well,
it's not as
And
responsive.
we talked about this in the
Right.
the review committee. Do we want to have deadlines for applications? Do we want, or instead of we're rolling now, but you know, the idea is, in the past has come up too, last year when we talked about this. It came up again. Do we want to have deadlines, you know? And that would be one of the benefits of having a deadline, you know, get all your applications in by February 28th, we'll review them in March, and we'll let you know by April. And then we do another one in June, and we do another one in September. I mean, so there is,
But they're usually not a surprise. I mean, you know, if there's an application, they're usually working with either the small
Right.
SBDC or with Heidi, or, you know, there's some preparatory work and some back and forth before it gets to a
yeah,
grant. So, I
well, you
mean,
know, we're not always getting that. I mean, I know some that are in the pipeline, you know, but when they actually come, we don't know. You know, are they ready? Are they this week? Is it next
Yeah.
week? And then maybe they disappear, and
Yeah.
then they reappear 2 months later with, I mean, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure you know.
Well, I just suggested if you did have that standing date, that maybe could drive those applications to
Yeah, and-
that point as well.
Yeah,
And the standing dates, if you go down that road, could be on the website for applicants to see as they're downloading the documentation. Well, here are my
Yeah.
due dates, and here's my answer date.
Deadlines are always good.
If you want to do a batch like that.
but,
My only point is
Yeah.
I think the committee work could be a little more organized, and oftentimes it's just delegating that organizational role to one person, and it's not necessarily a power position or anything, it's just the person making sure all the players are showing up and have all the information they need, and then communicating appropriately to the director and ultimately the board.
Yeah.
Figure out how you want to do it, but I get it.
If in your solution, part of that is what you need from Heidi, I think that's entirely
Yeah, let me know.
appropriate.
yeah, we'll have to, I mean, I would like to continue the conversation,
Yep.
and then connect with Heidi, and
Mhm.
let's see what makes sense for her and what, for us, and then,
Right.
identify those needs, and then make a decision, so.
Well, I've got a feel for how much time that particular committee takes up, so again, thank you for your work on that.
I would imagine.
I think the one last, I forgot about this, but the last piece of this puzzle, this kind of reassessment of the program is there isn't necessarily strict scoring or assessment criteria for individual applications. So in an effort to minimize perhaps a bias from a committee member, we are establishing a very simple, I would say, scoring rubric that assigns values to different elements of the application that are important and align with the program guidelines. So that's also coming down the line. It's taking a little bit of work, but I think that will help us in our small community look at applications from an objective point of view.
Sure. And I presume that this fine tuning isn't throwing out the direction already established, it's just building on it.
It's building on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, again, thank you. And it sounds like I'm going to be exposed to the current application in short order.
Perhaps.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hedstrom, Golf Committee.
Yeah, just to clarify, we're deliberately kind of keeping Heidi out of that because, we know we hope the golf course going away, we don't want to have that obligating her. So we've been working with Frank from Northco, and we have a really, really close to having the final document ready. We've got back and forth with Fred Dutterer, our attorney. There's some language about right of first refusal that we're kind of working through.
Yeah, and the document that, I'm sorry to interrupt, the
Yeah.
document Howard's referring to, it's an offering memorandum. So think of it as the package that would be exposed to potential buyers
Yeah.
to learn about what this is.
I mean, it's such a nice document, you think, gee, I should buy this thing.
Hedstrom links.
So anyway, we're really close to that. I hope that in the next day or two, that will go live. It'll be very shortly. So that then things really start. So that's kind of an update on that. I don't think there's any more for us at this point. It's just.
No, the listing agreement was executed with Northco, and then this is
Yeah.
the next big deliverable, is that
Yep.
offering
Just get some
memorandum.
clarification on some of these legacy agreements that were in place since '98 or something like that, since Bob Nelson gave the golf course away. He kind of kept some stuff, they weren't sure that the golf course was going to make it, so there's some of those that are right at, repurchase and things like that, but, we just need to be deliberate about telling the potential buyers about that. So that's really close.
Any other committees? We've heard already from Taconite, obviously.
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to share about that. But I lost it. It was only like 5
find
minutes,
it?
it was only 10 minutes ago that I had it.
Let me find it.
Taconite?
Yeah, Tack Harbor,
Okay.
think of anything, Tracy, you'll jog my memory.
Oh, Heidi, director report.
So it's 5:15, so I'll make this as quick as possible. Peter Clissold, President Peter Clissold, the EDA.
Oh, that one?
Yes. He wanted me to do another quick overview of open meeting law, just some reminders. So I'll do this again next month, but just a reminder, and not that this has been a problem with the EDA in the past, but just for future, with emails. If you need to respond to an email, don't reply all, because then that triggers open meeting law, and so all that discussion becomes public, and, I mean, everything is public, really, but just don't reply all, just reply to one person or less. Another thing is, the reason why the 6 EDA subcommittees have 3 people on them is because if it's more than 3 people, if it's 4, then that would constitute a quorum of the EDA, which then we would have to post a special meeting notice to hold those committee meetings, et cetera. So there's all those reasons for everything and that the EDA does with regards to complying with open meeting law. So just a few reminders on open meeting law. The next 2 questions or updates are regarding Cedar Grove Business Park. I have been gathering input from the property owners, business people in the park about a entrance sign, a permanent entrance sign for the park. And if you remember back in December, I had asked the EDA, is it okay if I, check into this and get quotes, stuff like that? You said yes. So it's taken a while to get back to this project, but it started again. So I've luckily been able to receive input from 14 of the property owners. Still have 6 to go or so that I haven't gotten a hold of yet, but so far there are 7 property owners that want to have a nameplate. Basically, back up. The idea would be an entrance sign with nameplates for businesses in the park. And so far, there are 7 business people that want nameplates. There are 6 that don't. Some do, some don't. And so after we gauge how many nameplates are wanted, then we'd be able to go out and get quotes and bring those quotes back to the EDA. The hope is by your next meeting in April. And then the other item to do with that is this expense is not in your 2025. This is not in the EDA's 2025 budget. But from what I understand, it should be an expense or an EDA funded project. I don't know if the EDA has ever talked about that in the past. Maybe you could refresh my memory.
I don't know.
But is that something, my question would be, would that be something that the EDA would want the project to be done this year, which would require transferring money around and to get it done this year?
In my opinion, there's no emergency. I think we can budget for it and get it done next year and just be really well prepared for it. If there's something I'm not aware of timing-wise, I'm open, but I would much rather go through the
Would
process.
this be something that would be funded by those people who want to sign?
The other issue is like, after we sell all the lots, who owns
Sign.
that business park? Is it still an EDA-owned property? I mean, I think we're done. That's what I believe. So then the cost of that would really go on to the landowners. It's like a neighborhood. If you have the village neighborhood and you want a sign announcing your neighborhood, that would be the cost of the property owner. So I would suggest to maybe the people that have an interest in the new sign, who brought it to our attention to begin with, right? It wasn't our idea.
No,
Right.
this was brought to my attention by one of,
Right.
he owns 2 lots.
Yeah, so I would suggest that maybe they come together and decide on something that they would like to have.
I mean, it's something we
Yeah.
legitimately can and are doing legwork for, but, then.
Yeah, we can do all the coordination and all this stuff, but I think the invoice should go to the property owners. Because it's not, I mean, once we sell those lots, we're done.
I mean, it's
So
gonna be a
not- yeah, so I think-
$5,000 sign, probably.
Much
Well,
more.
I'd
Much
say
more?
that's a low ball.
How
Much
much
more.
was the golf course sign?
50?
No.
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 They had a big number out there. I was going, really?
Which one, the one up there or the one out here? Which-
Down there,
It's Cary National.
Oh,
I
that
thought
one?
there was a big,
Oh.
wasn't there a big kerfuffle about it? No.
I was-
Well, my only thought is, like you were saying, what's the point, like, if not everyone plays ball? And don't you have to have a sign that's big enough to handle all of them? Because then in the future, somebody's gone, then somebody else
Right.
wants to, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Need a sign big enough. So, yeah, maybe it's better if they figure out how important they are
Right.
for that.
So you're saying that there was never any promises made back in the day of if you buy a lot in this business park, there will be a future entrance sign?
No,
Okay.
not to my
I don't
knowledge.
recall. I wasn't around.
Yeah, I think that's the best answer. I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, we should, I guess we should look.
Yeah.
We should go back in the old documents and
Okay.
and read up and see what they say.
Administrator,
Oh,
too,
Yeah.
if Mike has any
Yeah.
Yeah.
personal
And I think there was talk about the current sign,
There should be.
right?
because
With all the lots that are no longer
it's-
available and all
It's an
that. So
embarrassment.
that's the only discussion
But
I
that was a
recall.
sales technique. I mean, that
Yeah.
was in our
Yes. Sell
interest
it,
to
yeah.
advertise that, but
Right.
now this is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sign is not weathered well. It's- Although the EDA doesn't, we're not actively, owners up there any longer.
Yeah, we should just take it down.
We should take, at the very least,
Yeah.
take it
Yeah,
down.
that would be the expense that should be ours.
Yeah.
Taking it down. And then
And-
if someone wants a new one, I think that would be up to the property. That's my feeling right now without reading the document, right? Is that the property owners,
Sure.
and especially if we're not, and we're not responsible for that business park after all those lots are sold. I mean, but maybe we are. I mean, those sale agreements we have specify some responsibilities that we have.
Mhm.
Ongoing, right? You need to develop, you need to build, you need to have, but once they're done, and they're done, I mean, they've finished with the project, I think there's no more room for the EDA, we're done. I mean, there's no ongoing
Yeah. So
obligation
this
on
might
our
be
part.
like herding cats, and maybe we won't get there, but perhaps there is a role for us to play in organizing the thinking around their sign
Yeah.
and getting quotes, et cetera. They may not bite on it.
There's a lot of bad things happened really early on, and things got out of hand, and there's big MPCA settlement
Yeah.
agreement, and so it's been a long time since I read those documents, but I think there might be some legacy stuff in that
So we're
as
still,
well.
yeah, we might, because, yeah, what about, you're right, what about the water and soil and management of that? Yeah. I don't know.
So I've been meaning to convene, the EDA does have the design review committee, which directly relates to Cedar Grove. So there's other topics that have come up about Cedar Grove, inquiries from existing property owners that perhaps the design review committee could also discuss.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Let's get that document out,
Okay.
dust it off, and get the committee together and read it.
I know
Um,
you guys handled the spring sign bonfire then,
Yeah,
before all the snow goes?
Well, one of the property owners, Chris Skilldum, offered to dispose of the sign out of his own,
oh, good.
Yeah, he's opening up his gym like next week or something, so
Yeah.
yeah.
which is what prompted this inquiry
Right. If you-
about directional signage,
Can we
where
just
to
ap- Can we
turn.
just approve of that right now? Can we say Chris is
Yeah.
okay?
I-
I'm okay with saying that.
Yeah, let's
We
accept
can
his
haul away
offer.
right now and do what he wants with it. So,
Okay, okay. Which is my final question and related to Cedar Grove Business Park is, I have received another inquiry from one of the property owners, and that is, has the EDA ever discussed having mailboxes, like one of those, mailboxes in one spot for the entire park? Rather than, okay,
Because there isn't mail delivery in
I think
Grand
there,
Marais.
I think that person is hoping that that
Right.
I
would,
see.
Right.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would prompt that. Okay,
Only if you live in Creechville.
okay. Okay,
So
so that,
back to the open meeting law. Is the city going to have a grand opening at your new building?
Open meeting law?
Well, what comes to that is once in a while, there's an
I missed
event that a lot of us are invited to.
Oh,
And at that
yes, then
point, I
you'll
think
have to
we,
post it, yeah.
so then we just keep track of that because you post that as kind of a meeting then. When we know that more than 4 of us are going to show up for an event.
at an event.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, thank you,
yep.
now I'm tracking with where you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
okay.
assume you're going to do some kind of a thing.
Yeah, special invitation only.
Okay.
Just teasing ya. Mud season is over, everyone's coming
Bring my
to a
property
big
tax in.
party in May.
I'm in.
City
Well,
Hall.
and it-
We're not gonna have everyone tracking up the clean floors. So you gotta
Take
be
your boots
May.
off.
And
Yeah.
will our meetings revert to City Hall at that
It's
time?
totally up to whatever the organization wants to do.
We can test
We
their
used
AV
to
and
we used
see
to have
how
our
that
meetings at
works.
City Hall and then
Yeah.
they stopped their
You
building,
guys have
but now
extra
they got a really nice
office
space
capacity
there.
Oh, it wasn't always here.
No?
Not in the sense of before, no.
Okay.
You meant like
Yeah,
an age,
yeah.
yeah, we didn't build that in again.
Yeah.
Yes, most certainly we are, but not until May.
That's not far away.
I know, it'll go by fast. Yeah.
I bumped into Chris Levine just before this meeting and said, I'll be knocking on that door 10 a.m., maybe 9:59 Monday morning.
No, 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 no.
What?
Wednesday.
Oh, is that what it was?
Oh, okay.
He said I might
Is there a sign going up?
lose it.
You guys have-
That's another side story, apparently.
Sad
We're not
story.
going there.
Anything further from the executive director?
I spent too much time.
I
with the
remembered what
kiosks
my
along
bullet
downtown
was about.
Grand
And
Road.
it was just about,
It's gone
you know,
nowhere. So now they're,
Mayor Benson and I have had some background with the TAC Harbor, Minnesota Power, but roles have changed. There's new people, and so I just thought it'd be a good, and I wrote this to Heidi, not expecting you, I was just kind of spitballing ideas, but to have some kind of a meet and greet with the new players, and to also kind of introduce Siri into the mix there as far as just getting comfortable with some of the partners and just, you know, clearly it'd be great to have Shoulder Township involved and just thought it would be a worthwhile exercise for us sooner rather than later. So I'll just hope to get those contacts and maybe do a doodle
And I
poll.
think you're,
because you already had the one, right, the new Minnesota Power one, you have that person.
Yep.
So.
And I haven't met them, and, yeah, so,
But I mean, she has the name,
oh, yeah.
that's
right.
all I meant.
Yep.
were you also going to mention about Grand Portage and, so would.
Oh,
so-
right.
So would this be like an open house before we start the strategic planning, just everybody meets?
Yeah, I don't know that it needs to be an everybody thing, but just, I was hoping to get a little more familiar with some of the stakeholders. And yes,
Okay.
thank you for reminding me, we did talk about Grand Portage being included in the discussions sooner rather than later, because there was just talk about the history of the land and that sort of thing, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to share that idea, so nothing big.
Okay, no, it was big. All right, thank you. All right, that takes us then, if there's any other comments or concerns, I don't see any, to adjournment. So is there a motion to adjourn the March regular meeting?
Motion.
Oh, one of us, yeah.
And that's all I need to do to adjourn the meeting? Yeah, magic.
Yes,
All right,
Yeah.
thanks, everyone. Next meeting is Tuesday, April the 15th.
Robert's
Thank you.
rules say there is,
Did you get a second? Because.
that doesn't need a, Robert's rules say you don't need a second.
Okay.
Yeah, around the city, we just say, hey, we're done.
Yeah, when you get to the end of the agenda.
Agenda, we're done. We did our city.
As long as you
city
approve the
council
agenda.
reports, and we're done.
All right.
Good job.
This isn't, I didn't, while I was watching One Roof come up here, there's no, I mean, just like our meetings, they could participate remote, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to, right? There's no difference? Okay. Feel bad sometimes.
I know.
Come along